I don't tell a lot of stories on this channel, and I'm gonna challenge myself to not make any cuts or edits to this video, so just bear with me. This is real and raw. I think we should share good news stories when we have them. This is the story of how me and a couple other people got a friend of mine approved for a combat action ribbon 14 years after the events took place. So 2021, me and my family were hanging out with really good friends of ours, our best friends. And I was talking with my buddy, we'll call him Tom. I'm gonna protect his identity. My buddy Tom, and him and I deployed in 2011 to Afghanistan with the same unit to the same general region of Afghanistan. And we were just talking about our experiences, trying to just speaking it into existence, speaking it out so that we could process our thoughts and process our experiences. And we came to find out that our experiences were very different. So the way that signals intelligence radio battalions function, at least back then, was they would send out teams, SSTs, signals intelligence or SIGINT support teams. The teams would attach to infantry battalions or recon battalions in the area and provide support. We provided indications and warnings. We provided direction finding capabilities to the unit that we were attached with. So my buddy was assigned to a unit, and I'm not going to say which one, in the region that was a little more kinetic than where I was. And I asked him, I said, why didn't you get a combat action ribbon? You know, from what you're telling me, the stories you're telling me, you definitely meet the criteria for the award. And I looked it up just to be sure I wasn't tripping, and he meets the criteria for the award. So he said that after everything had calmed down and he spoke with the first sergeant of this company that he was attached to, the first sergeant had his own arbitrary rules, his arbitrary set of rules for the combat action ribbon, and that he wasn't going to put them in for it. So my buddy, just mission focused, was like, all right, whatever, boom, and kept moving on. So I said, are you okay with that? And he kind of just said, I mean, what are we going to do about it? I said, Tom, I'm going to call him Tom. I said, Tom, we're going to fix it. Like, your military record is incorrect. You saw combat. You performed satisfactorily while under enemy fire. And he's like, okay. I said, we'll figure it out. We're gonna get this submitted for a retroactive award submission or whatever. So I start digging. Into the awards manual, the Navy and Marine Corps awards manual. I start asking questions to my administrative sections, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do we even go about doing this? So the Marine Corps has a system called IAPS. I can't remember what it's called. It's something about award processing system. But IAPS is how we submit people for pretty much all awards in the Marine Corps. You do a little write-up, an officer does a little write-up, sends it up. It has to go through a board process to be approved. Once it's approved, the Marine is issued the award. So I start looking into that. I look into the award criteria, making sure that we're all good, like he is definitely qualified. I'm asking questions to more senior people just to be like, hey, is this something that we can do? And they say, yeah, you just gotta follow whatever's in the awards manual. So what we needed per the awards manual was a summary of action, which is basically just a detailing when the events occurred, where the events occurred, what each person did in that event, specifically my buddy Tom in this case, and just kind of like a timeline of events, what happened, what he did, all this stuff. And then we need 3 eyewitness statements. We need 1 from Tom and 2 from people who witnessed the events happen. So I get those. I tell Tom, I say, here, this is how you write up an eyewitness statement. Here's the form. Write up everything. I'm like, I know this is hard. You don't want to relive this crap, but write it up once and then we'll be good. So he writes it up, sends it back to me. I'm writing up a summary of action based off of his eyewitness statement. I get his 2 teammates who were with him during this firefight or during this engagement, and they send me their eyewitness statements. And I essentially take all of these corroborating eyewitness statements, I write up a summary of action, and we reach out and contact my buddy's OIC at the time of the events back in 2011. The man's a lieutenant colonel now. He was a captain back then. So we find him, he's still in active service in 2021. And we say, hey, sir, can you submit this in IAPS? So he says, yeah, but we have to submit it through the unit that the Marines were attached to, not the unit that they were a part of. Like, Radio Battalion is not going to handle this. The unit they were attached to has to handle this. So I reach out to the administrative section of the unit that they were attached to, and I'm asking questions, asking them how they want to handle this. They give the old OIC permissions to submit an award in their chain, and then we just get crickets for months. Nothing from this guy. We don't know if life events happen. We don't know if he's dead. We don't know if he's just ignoring us or what's going on. So most of 2021 was just gathering the initial documents that we needed. Eventually we find out, we decide we're not going to wait on him anymore. We're going to go to the next person in the chain of command, which was the second in command, the AOIC, the assistant OIC during that time, who is still in and is a major now. He was a lieutenant at the time, is a major in 2021. So we reach out and we're like, hey, sir, this is the situation. Are you willing to submit this in IAPS? He says, yep, I will do that, absolutely. We get him permissions. He submits the award. We kind of get crickets for a little bit. We get things pushed back and forth. Life is happening. At that time, I was a father of 4. My buddy was a father of 2. We have full-time jobs. Like, things are happening. This is very important to us, this award submission, but it's not a priority. So we're reaching out to as many people as we can to try to get this thing pushed through so that we can get it approved and we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's the right thing to do, right? It's also much easier to prove combat service when you have a combat device on your DD-214. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Tom had been out since 2012. So we're doing this when he's been out of the Marine Corps for 9+ years. So there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of people not responding, a lot of lack of communication. So I eventually reach out to a really good friend of mine who had been kind of working with the supporting unit and the other officers in this chain of command to try to get this thing pushed forward. I reach out to him and I say, look, this IAPS, this is not working. Like, we are just getting ghosted. We'll get 2 steps ahead and then it'll stop for a year and we're just not getting anywhere. So 2023 rolls around and he says, I have a point of contact. I know the guy who runs the Combat Action Ribbon office at Headquarters Marine Corps. So we get in contact with that guy. It's a civilian, government employee. And we say, hey, sir, like, what do we need? What do you need from us? He said, okay, well, your eyewitness statements need to be notarized. The summary of action looks good, what you have so far. And we also need this NAVMC. NAVMC just stands for Navy Marine Corps. It's a form. So it's a standardized form where you fill out all this information to submit the award. So we need this NAVMC. And we say, okay, fine. I fill it out the same day. Like, I'm not joking around. I am not waiting around. I'm not pushing this off. I want to get stuff done. So we finish the form. We send everything to him. Crickets. Months go by with no response. We finally get a response after a few months. We're pushing into 2024 at this point, and he sends it back. He says, hey, I've got these corrections that need to be done so we can process this thing. I said, okay, do the corrections same day, send them back. He says, oh, you have to get this NAVMC form signed. It can't just be signed by the originator. It has to be signed by everyone in that Marines chain of command up to the battalion level, their parent command battalion level. So we reach out. We are grasping at straws at this point because, you know, a lieutenant colonel in 2011 is either a very multi-star general at this point, or he's retired. Luckily, our old battalion CO from 2011 is still working for the government. He's retired, but he's still around and easy to reach. And we sent him this whole situation, told him what was going on. He said, yep, you send it to me, I'll sign it. So very, very supportive, very responsive there. Very responsive from the Marines AOIC, this captain who he submitted it like 3 different times in 2 different systems and signed a bunch of forms for us, like very helpful. But we couldn't find the company commander, and we needed his signature. So again, I reach out to a very close friend of mine, someone who has been supportive this whole time. He was an officer during this deployment as well. And he finds the old company commander's phone number, gives him a call, tells him what's going on. The company commander's like, yep, send it over. So I send it to him. We get all the signatures. We have everything. I have it all put together in a neat little email. I send it to this contractor, I send it to this man who is supposed to be submitting these awards. Crickets. Once again, we're put on a holding pattern. And every time we inquire about an update, he says, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm very busy, I'm wearing multiple hats, I'm trying to do multiple jobs at one time. I understand. Totally fine. But what do we need to do to expedite? Because like this has been years in the making at this point, and we just want to get it done. Like we just want whatever you have to do to submit, if you can take the 10 minutes to just, and it'll be done, and we'll boom. I'm not going to pretend to know what this man's priorities were. I'm not going to pretend to know how much was on his plate. But suffice it to say, we weren't getting anywhere with this man. And seemingly out of nowhere, Tom makes a phone call to talk to this man about his situation and what can be done and why it's taking so long. He gets a hold of someone else. They say, okay, we're gonna have him call you back. The next day, Tom gets a call from a lieutenant. The young lieutenant works in the Purple Heart office at the awards branch at Headquarters Marine Corps. And he said, hey, I'm going to be taking over this specific case because I saw a need. I want to do good, and I think I can do a lot of good if I come over to the Combat Action Ribbon office and take care of Marines. And we were like, yes, please. So we sent him everything we had just to be safe. He's like, yeah, we're missing some stuff. I just sent him everything. I said, here, what else do you need? He said, okay, let me look this over. He gets back to us the next day and says, hey, we just have to board it. Like, we have everything, all of your documentation looks good. We just have to board it. Once it's boarded and approved, we will issue all the right paperwork and get it taken care of. So we say, okay, how long is that going to take, sir? And he goes, well, about 45 days is pretty average. So we say, okay, just start that process. He goes, okay. 6 days later, my friend, Tom, sends me a screenshot of an email from this lieutenant and says, hey, congratulations, your Combat Action Ribbon Retroactive Award has been approved. We have boarded it and unanimously approved it. You will receive some documentation from me. You have to fill this form out to get a DD-215, which is an amendment to your DD-214, to get that award added to his paperwork. And then his 2 teammates who were there with him, who we had included on all the forms, they also got issued the award. So we got 3 Combat Action Ribbons awarded 14 years after events occurred. This should have happened long ago, before this process was this convoluted. But I just wanted to share that this is not impossible. And I know that my buddy Tom is not the only one experiencing something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the required documentation and sources in the description of this video, so that if you have any questions or if you have any concerns, or you're in a similar situation, or you know someone in a similar situation, you know how to take action to get their record corrected, so that they can validate what they did in service. We almost gave up a few times. But don't give up, and learn from our mistakes. We went down the wrong road for months, years even, before we finally figured out what the right way to do it was. So learn from our mistakes, and hopefully it only takes you a couple of days to get all the documents together, and takes the board process, 2 or 3 weeks to get back and approve the awards. So sorry this was long-winded. I wanted to make sure I did the story justice, and I also don't normally make a video without edits. I cut out one long pause in that whole thing. But if you have questions, share in the comments.